I'm here at UDS in Orlando, Florida, and we're here for the planning cycle for 1204, the LTS release. And I'm with Robbie Williamson. Robbie, you're the server manager for Ubuntu, correct?
Yeah, recently the title's been kind of changed up, but it's basically I lead the engineering effort around server and cloud right now for Canonical.
So there's been some exciting announcements this week concerning server and ARM. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so over the past 4 years, I think Canonical's been really involved with ARM in terms of just ARM technologies, mostly starting with the consumer market, client devices, and so forth. Over the last 2, we partnered with a company called Calzeta, currently based out of Austin, Texas, who was focused on using ARM microprocessors in a server design. And so over the last 2 years, they've been very tightly synced with how Ubuntu can help them from the server side because of our long history with ARM. And this week it kind of culminated in an announcement by HP, who's just really looking to be a forefront in micro server technology, so to speak. That they would be partnering with Calzeta in terms of creating a low power, energy conservative micro server, very high density, over the next year, using ARM chips that basically are going to be coming out in the next year or so that are much higher capacities for server workloads. And in terms of the OS of choice is Ubuntu. And so right now we are the only Linux operating system shipping right now for the ARM processor. The 11.10 release was the first Ubuntu server release for ARM. It was a technical preview because, of course, the server-grade hardware isn't available, so we were using dev boards from various vendors to just test the basic level things, of base level server workloads, porting certain applications over, such as OpenStack, to see if it worked. Clearly, you wouldn't run. It would be the equivalent of trying to run a cloud on your phone. So it wasn't very performant, but it was just making sure the technologies are ready to go, so that when the actual hardware is out, we're not spending time seeing if it works. It's more of just tuning it to make sure it works well.
Well, your team is doing a great job of affecting some of those tuning changes. And with the 1204 release being codenamed Precise Pangolin, how does being precise and tight and improving the quality over this next cycle play into what your team is doing?
Yeah, so the LTS is very, very important for the server. Not that the non-LTSs are any lesser quality, but just in the general ecosystems of people who are deploying servers, they like 2 things. One, they're not going to be changing OSs every 6 months in a deployment. So every 2 years is a better cadence for them if they want to upgrade into that. And the extended support cycle for an LTS is 5 years, which is really great for a lot of traditional server deployments. So the server team takes a very cautious approach. Overall, the Ubuntu team takes a cautious approach to the LTS in terms of how we sync from Debian testing versus Debian unstable and so forth. But the server team is even more conservative than that. This cycle was more so about hardening and the features that we rolled out in 11.10. We did a huge amount of work in 11.10. And it's and it's more of just cleaning the edges. 11.10 we replaced the entire cloud infrastructure in 6 months. We added an entire new deployment system in 6 months. We added an entire new service orchestration system in 6 months. So it's like, okay, we added all this stuff. Yeah, it works, but we'll be the first to say it's not all clean. So let's spend the next 6 months cleaning all this stuff up so that's ready to last 4 or 5 years in LTS.
And the other theme that I've seen throughout the tracks this week have been Juju, Charms,
right.
Orchestra, all those little services or tools that and I say little because it just seems like it just works, and,
right.
and there's not a big effort for users like me to go and deploy something with a Charm. I know on your side that it's been a huge effort.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about those efforts?
Yeah, so Juju and Orchestra are interesting. I'll start with Orchestra was something that the server team had been wanting to do for a long time. Resources were constrained when we were doing a lot of cloud integration with Eucalyptus, even with OpenStack. So the concept of it had been around for at least 3 or 4 releases. I believe going into, I want to say 10.10 is when we first started saying, okay, let's just call it we're going to call it Orchestra because it's about orchestrating services and deployments and controlling your entire server deployment from one machine. And it wasn't about creating something new. It's more of just finding people have been doing this for a while, but they wanted a blessed way to do it, right? They wanted a way that we supported, that we would keep up with. And so we chose various tools like Fedora's Cobbler, which is a great project, great tool for doing network booting machines and deploying images on, adding tools such as Nagios for monitoring and so forth. So it was more about collecting all of these, making it easy to install, and doing some integration to make sure that they ran very well with Ubuntu. And so as that was moving along, we had also had a project previously called Ensemble going on within Canonical. And that had started even before then. I mean, it had been, this is for a few years. The concepts were there, but it was just moving very slowly because it was such a new space. The cloud had been really forming and was looking at using the cloud in a different way. Most people just saw the cloud as just free servers in the cloud. I mean, they weren't really seeing the transition that comes with that in the cloud, an instance is cheap, and a cloud guest is expendable. So basically, it meant that there's just pieces. It's no longer you're having to worry about the cost of the hardware. So we looked at that and said, okay, let's move beyond individual servers to services and orchestrating these services, controlling these services. And Juju is that project where I like to equate it to, it's like package management for services in the cloud. The easiest way I explain it is for example, open LibreOffice, OpenOffice, how you want, whichever application you're using. Most of the time, it's just a tool that you use to create something, whether it's a presentation or a document or whatever, spreadsheet. You don't want to have to, download the source, compile it, make sure you install it right, find all the libraries. Packaging solved that problem for everyone, where you can just app get installed, I'm using it. It's the same with a lot of cloud services now that require, multi-tenant, interconnected instances, which could also be run on bare metal. Deploying Hadoop is like a 6-page instructions of, man, and most folks in the sysadmin world, or in the cloud community, commonly called DevOps, they don't want to spend a week learning how to deploy this because that's not their boss is saying, look, I want to use Hadoop, not have you spend all this time learning how to do it. So how could we codify like the expertise, as Mark calls it, distilled, DevOps distilled. If I have this person here who knows how to do Hadoop, knows how to deploy it, can we codify that so that everyone can share it? So that now you have a Juju deploy Hadoop, boom, it's up and running, and now I can get to using it. And we can control it very easily, just like in package management, you can install it, remove it, update it. You don't have to worry about it. Same with the service. Update it, scale it up and down, remove it, and getting out of the way of the DevOps so they can actually get their job done. It's the whole, I think, the really exciting part about it. And the part about the community, the charms community. The charms are the equivalent of a package. It's how you codify the deployment. And we had our first charm school. We had that today. And it was amazing to see how many people were in there just on the floor learning how about, and the best part was, George Castro, who you know very well, has kind of come over to help us grow this community. He ran into an individual in the community, his name is Marco, his last name escapes me right now, but.
Cheppy?
Yeah, and taught him, this Monday on how to do a charm. Marco, for deploying some services he wanted to do. By the end of this week, by Friday, he was leading a lot of that charm school, showing everyone else, which is very powerful. Because when you have someone from the outside who can say, this is great, this is revolutionary, it's not like anything else we've seen. I think it's just really awesome. And the excitement around all of that, it's nice for server. And for the community as a whole, I think, in Ubuntu.
I think it's very exciting. Robbie, how can people in the community who want to get involved with Server Team, how can they do that?
Oh, there's a lot of ways. We have the wiki page, wiki.ubuntu.com/server team, obviously. Mailing lists as well. If you're interested in Juju, there's juju.ubuntu.com, and there's actually a section on how to participate. Cloud.ubuntu.com is a space that we've created in terms of tracking all the Ubuntu cloud interactions. We also sit on IRC, Ubuntu-server. Ubuntu-Cloud, Juju. I mean, we're, you know, it's a bazillion ways that you can just email me directly, Robbie@ubuntu.com. But you know, we are, you know, Ubuntu server is different from desktop. We realize that different, you know, different draw in terms of who's interested. But you know, the community's growing. A lot of it is around the excitement around the cloud that we benefited from in terms of, you know, the OpenStack movement and us being, you know, a dominant player in terms of a cloud instance and Amazon and so forth. So yeah, I mean, over the past year, you know, a year ago I sat down with you and I just taken over the server team and didn't know what was going on. But over the past year, I mean, it's been amazing to see the size of not just the team, but you know, the entire community grow around this stuff, and Ubuntu really making its, you know, stamp on the cloud in terms of, you know, hosting the cloud, you know, looking at these new architectures as an ARM for scale-out computing, and working with, you know, great projects around that. So it's a very exciting time. So if anyone's interested, just, yeah, all those ways are listed. You can find us. we're receptive. We want it, you know.
Well, Robbie, thank you so much for taking time to sit down with me here at UDS in Orlando, Florida, once again.
No problem.
And looking forward to this next LTS and beyond. So thank you so much.
No problem.